So, I lied. Actually, failure itself doesn't rule. Failure can ruin lives, ruin families, destroy health, obliterate self-esteem, and launch ripple effects tasted exponentially by those in its extended path. Failure can plant an unbridled jostling within the heartbeat of your soul, a debilitating stirring that haunts your gut, anarchic terror that paralyzes your mental capacities. Failure can freeze your ability to digest food correctly, to make even the smallest decisions, to exercise, to love, and to be loved. Let's face it, failure really blows. I didn't write failure rules to worship at the twisted altar of self-indulgent, willful failure. There's no lesson, no discovery, and no value in that. But failure that is unintended, stridently fought against, creatively challenged, and humbly accepted when emerging inevitable is valuable. I wrote Failure Rules, the 5 rules of failure for entrepreneurs, creatives, and authentics to speak to this type of failure. Failure happens to us all. It has different levels of visitation on each of us. When it comes, we need to revere it. Before it arrives, we need to plan how we will greet it. In anticipation of it striking, we need to decide ahead of time how we will handle it. We need to manage our fear of it with reason and strategy. When it hits us, we will likely only be lowered to the level of our preparedness, not strengthened to rise to the intensity of its challenges. So it behooves us all to prepare for it. You must never cower to the false god of stability and security because you have been led to its altar by the affliction of the fear of failure. And you must fortify your spirit to never let any failure define you, and to never let the impression your failures may have on others define you either. To do this, to essentially be a failure prepper, it's helpful to study those who have conquered failure and analyze their journeys in advance of your own encounters with the F word. See, we can internalize unique strength by harnessing the lessons others have learned, lessons that can teach us to either avoid failure or brace ourselves properly to collide into it when unavoidable with the divinity of purpose and meaning. I say we because I include myself in the failure prepper group. Just as I am an enthusiast for entrepreneurialism, fintech, fine cigars, good bourbon, hardcore punk rock, spy novels, traditional tattoos, and vigorous weightlifting, I am also enthusiastic about the transformative value of failure. I'm equally passionate about what the hardcore punk band Sheer Terror calls standing up for falling down. In his classic book, A Farewell to Arms, the quintessential adventurer, Ernest Hemingway, noted that the world breaks everyone, and afterward, many are strong at the broken places. But those that will not break, it kills. The world we live in carries a promise of failure to all of us at some point in our journey. It is inevitable. Failure broke me repeatedly throughout my adult life. Broke me when I laid flat on my office floor, drunk before noon on the day I conceded to proceed with filing for bankruptcy. It broke me when I finally peeled myself off of that floor to then proceed to burn the rest of the afternoon at a strip club, ignoring my internal spiritual attachments in a desperate attempt to reach for some cheap facsimile of comfort and love. I did this believing the lies of my failure moment that I could not find real comfort or love elsewhere in the world, at home, or in my relationship with God. When I had to pack up my family and move with no job secured in our new destination state because our home was on the precipice of being foreclosed on, failure broke me. It broke me several times as I had to pivot away from failing businesses. When I had to wait in line at the government building to apply for public assistance, failure broke me. It broke me when my son and I were estranged for many months, and I wasn't really sure if we'd ever find sustainable repair. And failure broke me when I honored my ex-wife's wishes to end our marriage for 14 years. I let these experiences appropriately break me so that they would not kill me. Because I did, I became immensely strong at the broken places. This is why I wrote the book, Failure Rules, to encourage you to thoughtfully let failure break you when you encounter it, so that it not only does not kill you, but makes you stronger than ever at the broken places. Like a hydra that doubles its strength when it is harmed. When you learn to be a failure prepper, you will learn how to optimize each new failure that breaks you. It was during one particularly introspective walk on the beach back in 2013 that I became convicted to take a deep dive into studying the world of failure. A core business relationship of mine had just failed. My marriage was circling the drain, and I was contending with a fresh batch of uncertainty. This is when ideas for this book began stewing within me. The stew was violently, passionately, urgently stirred by the sounds thundering through my earbuds on that beach walk. The sounds of the Cro-Mags and Motorhead, specifically the songs Hard Times and Ace of Spades, respectively. Hardcore punk rock has always been a catalyst for driving change in me. It is a theme throughout the book because of the honesty, grit, and wisdom I've harnessed from the genre's music and message. That day on the beach, those songs invoked urgency and determination within me to commit, to study, analyze, and collate my failure stories, my friends' failure stories, and my heroes' failure stories. Those studies revealed common threads, or rules, if you will. Those rules became failure rules, and the 5 you can learn about in the book are really just the beginning. Along with listening to those 2 songs on that pivotal beach walk, 2 books also stuck out to truly fan the flames of momentum in the early writing of this manuscript. Those two books were James Altucher's Choose Yourself and Srinivas Rao's The Art of Being Unmistakable. Choose Yourself reinforced within me my power to rise up out of any failure, whether self-triggered or externally imposed. The Art of Being Unmistakable reminded me of the unique DNA of my creative being and impressed upon me the vastness of distinct potential that lay within me and all of us. Both books were critical kindling that nurtured the fires that burn to create the 5 rules of failure. Embedded within the structure of the book, I've distilled 5 critical rules for engaging with and thinking about the F word. Most specifically, rules that apply especially to entrepreneurs, creatives, and authentics. I recount many of my own personal encounters with the F word: business failure, relationship failure, intersecting failures, cascading failures, like the ones you've already gotten a taste of in this video. I chose to be raw and vulnerable about my failures because I believe that the strength that Hemingway wrote about originates from this space. You get strong at the broken places by looking at them, talking about them, and then putting yourself back together again in a renewed and improved way. The 5 Rules of Failure is your field manual to help you look at your failures, discuss them with yourself, and guide you into putting yourself back together better on the other side of your failures. To illustrate the value of the 5 Rules of Failure, I also look away from the mirror and peer outwardly to highlight the stories of people within my direct sphere of experience, friends, colleagues, business partners, acquaintances, cigar smoking buddies, who have crashed and burned with blazing failure and have improvised, overcome, and adapted to emerge from those ashes with renewed and enhanced strength. One step further, I gaze farther out into the stories of some public figures, historical and contemporary, famous and emerging, who have failed loudly along their mysterious calling journeys. Many of these hard times heroes found their deep meaning by deliberately participating in the creation of positive, impactful, potentially immortal content. I'll walk you through examples and case studies ranging from Nazi defeater Winston Churchill to punk rock icon Henry Rollins, from the biblical character of Job to failure comic Rodney Dangerfield, from legendary boxer Jack Johnson to political commentator Glenn Beck, from billionaire pantyhose maker Sarah Blakely to country music star Toby Keith, from actor Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to author J.K. Rowling, from podcaster Tim Pool to author Stephanie Lamb, astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson to former gang leader Elgin James, among others. These case studies highlight individuals who stepped outside of the circumstances of their failures and dissected, analyzed, and parsed out every bitter and sweet flavor of their failure experiences. They then utilized every instructive, fully nuanced lesson learned to shape their next step in a different way. In most of these cases, it's clear that an adherence to the internal spirit voice, that mysterious voice within all of us that offers us guidance in our directional decisions, is what sets these people apart. This adherence creates strength that moves through failure in a distinct way. They ignore the noise of normative, dreamless living. Instead, they decisively fuel the inner soul fire to drive the unique quest for living out their authentic path. The experience and immediate tangible results of failure suck. It's the lessons we extract from the hard times of our failures that rule. They have a way of forging new paths for us that flow into new realms of strength with a distinctly acquired wisdom. Failure can carve within us the proper character traits needed to rightly handle future success: humility, empathy, discernment, and gratitude. I did not write failure rules to attempt to seduce anyone with some iteration of the authority illusion. While I know failure well, I claim no authority on the subject as an expert. I generally do not trust anyone who claims to be an expert on something. True experts are loath to identify as such, and their expertise is most marked by a humble acknowledgement that they are always in constant discovery of more expertise. This is not a book loaded with clear, permanent marker answers. No one has a patent on the secret sauce of the value of failure. Rather, it's a book of visceral observations, vulnerable recollections, introspective findings, and overarching themes. Erasable, malleable, whiteboard stuff. Give it a read and cherry pick what is useful for you. The book doesn't need to be consumed end to end sequentially. And that can work, but feel free to merely just take bites ad hoc as you see fit while skimming, should you be so inclined. It's also not a book intended to moralize with an imposition of indisputable proverbs. Any lesson within the book is just one take, captured within one slice of contemplative time and codified for any who value it. Ralph Waldo Emerson was right. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. With this truth operative, the book must be consistently contextualized, re-scrutinized, reapplied with modification, and freshly imbibed with a chaser of newfound comprehension. As time goes on, I suspect that even I will read the words written in the book and decide I've evolved, changed, or enhanced my thinking on it. In regard to the value within the text of the book that does prove to hold up over time and through applied critique, Such value will be as much for my benefit and instruction as for you, the readers, as I'll need to refer to these rules and stories again and again far into my future to remind me who I am and how I need to remain oriented. My failures will surely extend to my own reasonable ability to consistently adhere to the very rules of failure I've identified. So, if you're new at getting knocked down and pushed around by failures as you step out as an entrepreneur, as a creative seeker of the truth, or as an individual living authentically, then open your ears to your internal spirit voice. See beyond the optics and urgent pull of failure's immediate mess and pick at the good stuff left in the rubble. Let hard times make you. Learn the F word, because as you follow the 5 rules of failure and move forward into success, you'll find that after it sucks, failure rules.